Welcome everyone. Today we have another discussion, and definitely we will discuss on the topic on COP27. As COP27 is very important for emerging economy, that's why we are focusing on COP27, and especially we will discuss on capacity building. And today's session, I believe, it's very interesting because we have our speakers, Mr. Van from Poland. He is representing Europe. We have Professor David Smith from USA, Texas, Austin. So he can represent North America. And we have our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. Asim Musa from Egypt. He can represent from Africa. And I'm Sharif from Dhaka. So Asia, Europe, North America, and Africa. So it's a four continent we are covering right now. So thank you for joining today's sessions. Uh, First, I would like to give chance, Mr. Van the Lot, what you mean capacity building and how you want to define capacity building in terms of COP27 and in terms of climate change issues, how you want to define. Can you unmute, please, Mr. Van?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
We're in a very interesting... Can you hear me well? Yes? All hear me well, yes? We're in a very interesting time in which fossil fuels still have a role, but they are like dinosaurs. They are dying out gradually. Although we are heavily dependent, too heavily dependent on it, I think this is the right time to develop new energies. But what the trigger is for new energies is that we need a lot of engineering and intelligent people from different continents to put hearts and minds together to develop more the new energies without all these emissions and so forth. I think it's very challenging times and we should really get together. Some parts of this getting together is rather not on the technological side, but on the side of the ability to communicate with other cultures, with other continents. It is the ability to become more diplomatic and to put care before commerce. Of course, if you work, you want to eat from that. You need some bread and some salt. But it is time to put care before commerce so that we really can help the world to progress. So what I see, the building of capacity lies mainly in the building of good communications between different parts of our world. Also, if we think about care and commerce, care is closely connected with commerce. If we care well for this world, we will have better use, we will have better investments. And if we don't take care, what will happen is that there will be a lot of destruction. Climate destruction, but also destruction of communication between people. So in fact, we have no choice. We must go the right way, the way of communicating and putting intelligence together to get to a better world. If there are any questions,
Thank you.
please.
Professor David Smith.
I agree with everything which was said there because we really need to look at the actions going forward. And if you go back and look historically after each of these events and go back and understand that even going back to the earliest events, part of the output was how can we build capacity? If you go back and look at COP25, COP25 was trying to get a broad group of players. COP24 was the first capacity building hub at the COPs. and it laid the foundation for an inclusive and engaging platform to try to get community capability building people together. And you begin to see them growth. You know, at COP26, there were more than 4,000 participants in the sessions that were targeting capacity building. In capacity building, those complicated because capacity building, yes, has a financial piece to it, but capacity building is also how do you create the core competencies and capabilities that are required for capacity building? How do you create the relationships that are necessary for capacity building? How can you do this in a way where you have to cross boundaries that you're not used to crossing to build capacity? And those are some of the challenges we see across these various COPs as you look at how to build capacity to address the environmental concerns that we have today. One of the positive parts out of COP27 for capacity building is it has become more inclusive. Some of the early COPs were focused mostly on the larger nations, the richer nations. At COP27, it expanded to look more broadly across the other type of capabilities as well. And particularly for the smaller disadvantaged countries. You know, by 2050, Africa, for example, is going to make up a quarter of the global population. And, you know, if you look in Africa, for example, they account for almost 40% of carbon emissions and beginning to go. So you see places like in Africa where the COP27 really needs to begin to look and say, how can I begin to do things like that? And one of the historical conclusions out of COP27 is there has become a consensus on a decision to compensate for the losses and damages for vulnerable nations who have been severely affected by climate disasters. And these are nations that cannot afford it. It's just like in my hemisphere, Haiti is one of the poorest nations actually in the world, but in this one. And every time there is an earthquake, every time there's a hurricane that impacts them, every time there's a crop disaster, which happens quite often there, you need to look at how to help with their losses, how to compensate, how to help build future capacity there. But the challenges with Haiti, which I think is a lesson we're going to have for most of the other places in the world where we're trying to build capacity after COP27, is it needs to be sustainable. The history I see from looking where we have thrown money and capabilities for capacity building is it tends to be a one-time event. It's not a sustainable activity. You don't train enough people to sustain it. You don't put mechanisms in for sustain it. So it becomes a Band-Aid that when the Band-Aid falls off, you're back where you were before, and sometimes even worse. So that's some of the challenges we're going to have with capacity building after really some of the historic outputs from the COP27 geared towards capacity building. So Sharif, opening remarks, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Musa.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you again today, talking about capacity building. And I think, for COP27, there is a lot, of improvement or advances regarding climate change, because what's happened before, because a lot of, decisions, make, but, we have to make sure for implementation. For example, we have to concentrate about two things. The first thing is science or new technology, like I said, Cloud technology, to the technology of the 21st century that will help a lot, in climate change. For example, we're looking for the, early alarm for anything related bad to happen, in the climate change. That's why they suggested, for the, invest for this, early alarm to avoid the damage or something like that. Also, if any country, have a lot of, harms because of climate change, for example, like Pakistan, we have to help this country by the, climate adjusted, not by pound or something like that. That's why, there is a money, special, for the countries that damaged because of climate change. So for the, capacity building hub is starting at, COP24. So we have COP 24, 25, 26, 27, the fourth, capacity building. So capacity building is a space for representation or collaboration or knowledge between, all stakeholders involved in this, climate change and the losses of the climate change. So the hub is an example to work together, to do something good, to cooperate. That's why we talk about, peace, not war, because we need to, to construct, to destroy, to do something good, not to destroy. So capacity, building is a space of representing, a collaboration of wide array of stakeholders. We have, COP24, takes place also every year, and also, we have the second and the third that happened at COP26, engaged with more than 250 experts, from 190 institution hosted, 42 sessions, and over the course of 6, days. But, we would like, to change from, from talk, to action. We need action, regarding, money, for or finance for developing country. As developed country, say that it will be like 100, $1 billion every year. I think 7 countries only, do the promises, and the rest does not do the promises. So a lot of things we have to, to move from the, talk to action. Also, for the COP 27, that happened. It's supposed to end at 18, but stay 1 or more 2 days, to make agreement about the finance. And I think they succeeded, and till, you can, make a meeting on March, next year. And also Egypt will responsible, for all that till the starting of the next year, that Emirates or United Arab Emirates will host, the COP 28. A lot of things, happened, good for the COP 27. For example, moving forward, I think there's moving forward, a longer conversation about funding for loss and the damage, because, finance is so important, especially what's happened due to bad economy, due to war, due to COVID-19. So COP27 is that in countries, delivering a package of decision regarding the global temperature rise to 1.5 degree, also creating a specific fund for loss and damage, marked an important point, of this. Also, government took the groundbreaking decision to establish new fund, arrangement. For example, the new fund arrangement and the fund at COP28 next year, and the first meeting will be at March 2023 to move forward regarding that. But also agree about the institutional agreement to, operationalize, Santiago network for loss and damage. A lot of, of good things, happened, in Egypt. Egypt, I think, do a lot of good things to organize and to, to cooperate, all stakeholders to do something good. Also, for example, to highlight the global transformation to a low carbon economy, to require investment at least, 4 to 6 trillion dollar USD. So a lot of things, happen in COVID, in COP 27, regarding the, outcomes in technology, in mitigation, and global stakeholders. Thank you so much for giving a chance to talk. Thank you, Mr. Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you. We have our friends from Victoria from Russia. Victoria, can you?
Hi guys, dear colleagues, sorry, I will be without
Yes.
video to some with some. Yes, according to our topic, we should emphasize that quality training and it is rather important in the in sustainability currently. So, as far as I see, we try to implement this. One of these phase of sustainability inside tasks and to educate to the young generation of Africa. And I see that World Economic Talent Forum as well. They try they educate the audience using this video and to high to make the level of the country much higher when they implement or talk or discuss the innovation and business latest trends inside economical areas all over the world and inside business and trends as well. So I could say that we do understand that no matter every crisis that we have in Russia and Ukraine and in the startups and business industries try to move forward and to be flexible, not create the possibility and not lose the possibility that market gives them. So we here could implement these novelties inside business strategy of some small company or uh, talk about government, some government new services or agenda. So business capacity is also very important for economical development and um, but nevertheless the first step in this to high to high the level to raise the level of the education and to give the education uh, more high level and more to make it to make it not so much by the close to the various level of the community of the social of the um, of social level. For example, we if we were talking about Germany, they have free educational system. You could it is so-called private education. You could get the education without payment, and it helps the country develop and to move forward and to implement new technology inside the system. And in Russia and Ukraine, we also have former USSR, some educational institutes. They also have some sort of free educational system, for public educational system. When you could, by your knowledge, you could get the possibility to study for free and to get the education. And in such a case, you could help to your country and to the economic with uh, mm, strong economical identity and to build something to educate other people or to build your business or to be hired by someone inside the company.
Mhm. Thank you. Mr. Van, especially as we're discussing about capacity building in terms of sustainability and building a sustainable ecosystem, what you want to share, how we can do that? What is your advice?
I just want to come back on what I said before. I think one of the major issues is to learn to work more closely together with the different continents and countries in the world. If we can share technology, we can increase capacity to solve our present problems. If we can share intelligence, then the progress we can make is much faster. This capacity building of really changing the climate also has another aspect. We can use less, we can waste less. This is another thing which would need discussions and discipline. Consumption. The old law is consumption creates commerce and our economy. But consumption also creates a lot of problems for our planet. Maybe we should consume more what is really necessary for us and produce more what is really necessary for us. And again, I see most ability to build capacity by building better communications between the different parts of the world. To be honest, the intelligence to create an effective new energy system is there. It needs only to be coordinated and implemented. This is a very difficult effort because usually every country and continent is caring for its own profits and not for the world as a whole. And I think we need a mental change there, a change of mindset. This is my way of looking at it. I believe we can only change by changing ourselves, our way of working. Present political and economical leadership is very much fixed on country profit or their own profits. And we should look to much wider profits, the profits of having a clean earth for our kids. And this will need an effort to learn to invest. I would say give or invest in communication, to invest in other cultures, to try to make a network of people who can really develop effective energy systems to which we don't need to waste so much.
Thank you. Professor David Smith.
Once again, a lot what has been said, I agree with totally. And I particularly like how it was divided up in the prior comments here. You know, I can use technology as part of the solution. I can look at how can I build the technology capabilities and competencies there. But for technology to work, I also have to have the skills and infrastructure in place to do it. So part of, as I look at technology, can I put infrastructure in place, particularly in the developing nations, that can support the technologies that we're bringing to bear? How can I create the human capital, the skills, the support, the understanding that can be using that technology across the new infrastructure that has to be put in place? How can I look in the governments of each of those regions where we're bringing in the new infrastructure to support the technology, we're growing the human capital? How can I get the government in place to do that? In many of the developing nations, there's a culture of part of the resources, part of the money um, that is brought in, not being directly applied to projects. How can I go back and look at ways where we can change a history of graft, a history of money disappearing from large amounts of money brought in to solve problems? Um, all of these are elements that are necessary for effective capacity building to solve this problem. And as was just said also, how can I do it on a global basis? You know, a lot of this capacity building is focused in a region, in a country, in an area. But to have an impact on the global climate issues, you have to go beyond your borders. You have to go beyond your continents to have an effect. And so, what we just described of going from infrastructure to technologies to skills, competencies, capabilities, government action, citizens action, company actions on a local, regional, national, global basis. That's the challenge we face as we look at how to build capacity. And the ways we have traditionally tried to build capacity in the past probably are necessary but not sufficient to meet these needs. So even though the capacity building is necessary, it's not sufficient. So we have to look at new innovative ways to begin to address these problems. Because doing the same things that we did before and expecting the same different results usually is not going to happen. It goes back to that old saying, you know, if I drop a brick on my foot, it's going to hurt no matter how many times I drop it on my foot. And that's the same thing with capacity building. We've got to change the way we're doing this. We have to use group intelligence. We have to bring a systems view to it. We have to look at ways to set up common metrics, common KPIs as we implement this capacity building. And we have to have a way to enforce compliance is too strong a word, but we have to have a way to enforce that the things are done in a way that they can have an impact. Because creating the capacity building to solve climate is only as strong as the weakest member. And we need to make sure that we create the capability across all the members in developing and developed nations, and they have to be applied together. So, Sharif, I think that is my next thing, building upon the discussion I've heard so far.
Thank you. Dr. Musa.
Thank you so much. I agreed, with all speaker about, capacity building. Just I wanted to tell you that, climate change, is, very important because, if we're talking about, what happened before World War II, bad in economy, COVID, 19, Russia and Ukraine, this, uh, happens, and ended. But climate change, continued, with us a lot of, of years or centuries. So we have to take care about, this, climate change. For me, I imagine that three steps we have to make regarding this capacity building. The first step, as I said before, peace, because we need to build, not we need to destroy. We need for cooperation, not we need to to conflict. That's why we have to end all the conflict inside countries due to revolution or between country and another country like Russia, Ukraine, Palestine, Israel. So we have to end all war before we start working about this procedure of climate change. As I said, that COP27, a powerful message, to all the world from, because this COP27, held in Sharm el Sheikh, the city of peace. That's why we would like to say to all the world, we have to start, with peace. This peace is step number one. Without peace, we cannot do anything. With peace, we can do everything. The second step, for my opinion, is that we have to use the power of the cloud of everything technology. As the internet changed our life, cloud of everything technology include 5G, 6G, IoT, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, digital twins, blockchain. Will it change our world? More strong that internet. We have to know the power. That would help in achieving the 17 and SDG, and helping in poverty, diseases, violence, poor leadership, and handicapped people. And all the people have to use this power, in climate change and problem, and use it in all the world for universal adoption of this new technology. Let African people and the Arab, country know how, for this new technology to reduce the gap between Africa and all the world, and we make sure that Africa will change from passive consumer to active producer. That's why we can do something good. The third step, is the most important step, is the finance. Without money, we cannot do anything. So we need to, fulfill the promises that developed country to the give it to the developing country. It's about $100 billion, every year. Seven countries only, fulfill the price, and the rest does not fulfill the price. Also, the promise. So I also, there's also the suggestion about uh, project about to finance the climate action project according to a long term system that include all low income and the low middle income countries without exception, with a grace period of no less than 10 years and the repayment period of not less than 20 years, and the cost of no more than 100%, will help a lot. Also, the money that is specialized for the damage will help a lot. So a lot of change, we cannot do anything, without peace, without, new technology, without finance. That's my opinion. Thank you so much for giving us a chance to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Victoria, you want to? Thank you. Victoria, you want to add some point? Hello, Victoria. Okay, Mr. Van, actually, uh, we are discussing about capacity building. Research and innovation is important part. Victoria, you want to add some point?
Sorry. Yes, I absolutely agree that do not help to move forward to any economy of the world. But what we see in Israel, for example, or Ukraine or Russia, startup industry and innovation business move forward. So we didn't forecast any crisis, especially some social crisis, or like we have war currently, these sort of crisis. We didn't forecast it in any case, and the people, maybe some CLA or FBI or FSB for KGB could forecast such crises, but not plain people, but not business. And that's why what I do see in Ukraine, especially how startup industry developed, and no matter what they move forward, they get some innovations. Yes, a lot of people relocate from Russia and Ukraine as well, but people continue to do their business to produce some results. Of course, it is usually connected with some mentorship or psychological help, for example, and to people, and some donations for social help from the side of CEOs of the companies. But this capacity building couldn't be influenced by such crises. What we see during COVID, and we are currently after post-COVID world, and we should be flexible, and flexibility will help to move forward during previous crises and to develop social networking, to rebuild every chain of this row and to get the result to develop society as well. So yes, I absolutely agree. It doesn't. This situation, the war doesn't help, but it couldn't influence much on people who want to make some innovations. Because usually we see the examples. Of course, we are not talking about some the poorest countries, for example, in Africa, or some climate changes, crisis that we couldn't forecast or couldn't forbid or stop. For example, we couldn't stop earthquakes, and we couldn't forecast it 100% efficiency. And of course, it is influenced on the final result. But all that's connected with social crises, with people network crisis, with diplomacy, we could forecast it, and we, no matter what, we could move forward, during these crises, move society forward. What I wanted to say. Thank you, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you. Mr. Van, we want to learn more about research and innovations. When we discuss about capacity building, we need to do more research, as well as we have to develop better policy for sustainability. What's your advice? Can I unmute, please?
What came to my mind is open source has done so much for the world. Many people have added to several operating systems, all kinds of systems, their intelligence, their ideas. There's a board who's controlling its development. I think to develop proper intelligence for new technology can be done in exactly the same way. As I said, we should really transcend borders to get to a next stage in our world. And we have much to overcome. It's not as simple. I think Victoria spoke about the conflicts in Europe, where technology is only used to destroy each other. But if we would put our minds on technology to help each other, we would create a completely different world. And I think we have to be very smart in it. If you develop technology to destroy each other, you want to keep it secret because you want your weapon to be stronger than that weapon of your enemy. But if you develop technology to help everyone in the world, you can make it a shared technology. And I think that is the way we go, and that is the way we can create a capacity to really do something. Also, what I have found many times traveling the world is that the world in its intelligence is like a puzzle. What the West knows, the East can complement, and we know more. And what the South knows, the North can complement, and we know more. If we have the intelligence from the different parts of our world, where climate is different, where thinking is different, where humans are different, where schools are different, where experiences are different, we can really put it together in one system. We can really do something effective. That's my thinking, Dr. Sharif.
David Smith.
Thank you again. The ability to think differently is a hard task for many nations, particularly as I look at some of the developing nations, and particularly the very poor developing nations. There has not been much human capital building in many of them. There has not been the ability to do at scale large projects that are sustainable, which are necessary going forward with initiatives like what we see coming out of COP27. There's a concept I've spoken about before called a technopolis. Technopolis, there's a lot of academic literature on it, a lot of commercial literature on the technopolis concept. And what a technopolis is, and Austin's an example of a technopolis here where I live. It's where the commercial sector, the government sector, the academic sectors, and the human capital all come together to work to solve the challenges, to build capacity, to build competencies and capabilities. That is what's necessary for COP27 to work in the developing nations. You need to use a technopolis type of approach that has proven successful all around the world on how do you create change? How do you bring innovation in? How do you create a sustainable future? Because if I get down to the basic level of what COP27 is trying to do with the capacity building, it is to create a sustainable future. And you have to deal with all of those elements to create a sustainable future. And this is not an easy task. If it was just taking technology, deploying it and turning it on, then we would have solved this already. It's a complex problem that takes complex solutions that are not isolated to just a piece of technology or an approach. And so you have to use the complex problem solving process for this. I'm an expert in something called wicked problems. And actually, as Dr. Sharif knows, I'm working with NASA in the United States on putting in a methodology for dealing with wicked problems. One of the characteristics of a wicked problem is while you're solving it, the problem is going to change. It's going to morph. Capacity building to solve climate is a wicked problem. And so even though we put a solution A in on day one, it might take a solution B or C down the road to begin to solve the problem more. And so that just a one-time insert of some technology and capabilities isn't going to be what will solve these types of problems long term. So again, we have to change the way we think about them. We have to change the way we collaborate against them. We have to build the group intelligence and the group capabilities that are necessary to affect this type of innovative change, because this is an innovative change. And we have to do it in a way that is sustainable. This cannot be a one-time injection. It has to be sustainable because the environmental impacts are long-term. They're not a quick fix. So I hope as we develop the outputs from COP27, particularly around capacity building, that we take the long-term view, that we take the view that it has to be sustainable, that it has to be scalable, and that it has to be a global solution set to work with these problems, or we're going to be back having the same discussion after COP28 or COP29. And let's hope we get it right to solve these problems. And Dr. Sharif, I think that is still the challenge. This is a complex problem, and it takes complex solutions to solve complex problems. So, Dr. Sharif, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Musa.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. As we always say, innovate or die. So now we have the biggest transition, evolution in technology that's called cloud of everything. Include 5G, 6G, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, digital twins, cloud computing, blockchain. So as the internet has changed our lives, this new technology, cloud of everything, will change and impact our life again. But we have to make restriction, regarding this new technology to use it for a peace, not for a war. To use it to help people, not to replace people, because we need to, to reduce unemployment. We need to increase employment for people. Also, we have to use it, to solve our problem. For example, climate change to achieve the 17 SDG and 169 goals. Also, we have, to adopt this technology not only, in Asia or Europe or USA, but also in Africa and Arab country for universal adoption of this new technology. So I am happy also because COP27, happen in Egypt, and COP27 will happen in Emirates. So the two, events, happen in Arab or African country or developing country. That's why you have to concentrate about, the damage that happened for the, developing country, or let the developed country help developing country regarding, for example, technology, this new technology, by helping them in know-how, let them know this new technology. For example, I think the outcome of COP27 and three, things in technology, in mitigation, also, in global stock take. But for example, for technology, COP27 saw the launch of the new 5-year work program at COP27 to promote climate technology solution in developing country. That's why I hope that will continue improvement in COP 28. Also, a lot of of US on the children participate. A lot of write books, and a lot of decision maker translate these books about climate change. There's a lot of project, and choose the best project regarding climate change. A lot of good work haven't, but we need to continue. We need to cooperate. As I said, three steps. We have to first is peace. Second is implementation of this new technology and universal adoption of it in all the world. And the third is finance. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you. Victoria, Madam Victoria. Marky, we are discussing about capacity building. It's a side talk of COP27. Victoria, you want to add any point?
No, no, no. Thank you for invitation, Dr. Schiffer. I absolutely agree with the statements. Thank you for your point of views. It's absolutely interesting. And,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marky. Mr. Marky, we are discussing about capacity building, especially based on the COP27. So what you want to add for today's discussion?
Well, like I said, I was just in the backstage listening, and definitely capacity building is a vital part of any of the discussions that go on, particularly when we come to issues around climate change, where we have to make sure that these issues are being discussed in a way that is beneficial to all of the parties and all in that space. But capacity building is something that even in the micro version of things we have to be careful of as well. So whether we're talking about a large thing like a issue like climate change, or even if you're talking about something like the way offices run, we all have to know our capacities and know that we are able to address the capacities that we have in all of that space. Because I do know that a lot of times, and I think that even David will agree with this, that a lot of times, whether it is a country or an individual, we can step into that lane where we are trying to do more than we actually have the capability to do. And that is what capacity building is all about, is making sure that you are able to bring to the table what you need to do, even in the nature of some of these very important issues, like what's going on the global climate and all in that space. We can talk about regulations, we can talk about what we want to do in that space, but if the countries don't have the capacity and the abilities to actually regulate, then they're going to have to find other ways to bring other regulatory forces into the conversation so that it all can be done in a correct way and in a beneficial way to all that are involved. And I find that is often the case, whether you're talking about something that is more smaller or micro or a macro project like that of around climate change. I can saw some capacity building going on in an event that I just finished and all in that space, because sometimes folks will try to give you to do much more than you actually have the capacity to do. And that can even happen on a conference that is going on. And we just closed the conference, and I can tell you that my capacity was stretched to the limit. And I do know that David has been in that situation as well. Because sometimes your capacity can be stretched to the limit, and that is part of what is all about capacity building, is knowing your limitations. And if you have those limitations, making said adjustments. And I would say the same thing on the world stage as well.
Thank you. Mr. Van, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Repetition and exercise is a winning thing. If COP1 didn't work, and we're now at COP27, maybe COP28 will work. Repetition is the key to success, and we should enlarge this kind of discussion. It's a very good discussion. Thank you for inviting me. We should learn in the first place to communicate more with our global community. This is, for me, number one.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, what's your concluding remarks?
There has been fantastic wisdom spoken during this session today. My hope and desire is that the leaders who are in charge with implementing this, both at the COP level and at each of the individual nation states, could listen to this, learn from this, and apply the wisdom that has been spoken during this last hour to address this problem. And I believe that if your program, Sharif, on this could be distributed widely enough, it would make a great difference in solving this critical problem. So that's my concluding remark, and thank you again for allowing me to be part of this very fantastic group of speakers. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Musa.
Yeah, thank you so much. About that Egypt hosts a climate change conference, in Sharm el-Sheikh, the city of peace. That's, to send a message to the world about the importance of peace, and without peace we cannot do anything. Also, COP28 will be in Emirates, so we have Arab and African countries. That's why we have to concentrate to help developing country. Development can help a developing country. As I said, we have to concentrate, first about peace. Second, about universal adoption of the new technology and awareness of it in all the world, not only in Asia, America, Europe, but also, in Africa and Arab countries. And the third way is finance. The developed country have to, fulfill the promise, to the developing country. That's my opinion. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Victoria, you want to add any point as a concluding remarks? But then I request Mr. Mark. Victoria.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I absolutely agree that reputation is and it will be good if we have some conference devoted to this topic, because currently we have a lot of levels of education and internet education as well. So we are influenced by social media, and CEO target every business, and we Google names Names are Google right now, so yes, it is a very interesting topic, and it is important. I point of view that reputation is not important topic for example, in Russia or Ukraine, they start to talk about reputation, reputation consists of usually just even about comments, but usually about your business, but sometimes it's like uh, competition war of your competitors, and the people's targetation shouldn't be sure that the positive or negative comments is organic, not some sort of advertisement or part of competitive war, competition war. So. And I'm sure, but I'm sure if we're talking about the worldwide reputation, about the globalization, we will be more attentive to this topic of our life, to this the level of your presence inside society. So,
Thank you. Mr. Markley, what's your concluding remarks?
No, just listening, and definitely collaboration is very important, and definitely within that collaboration space, we've got to find ways that all of the parties are definitely having the benefits. If there are folks that have a greater understanding, then and they can help those that are in the smaller nations or some of the other lesser nations in getting some of the support that they need. That is very vital, because we do know that that is something that goes on, and definitely we need to be using, as you are doing a masterful job, the space of social media in order to have this collaboration take place, and in order to have lessons learned from some that are in the West to some of the smaller nations as we continue to tackle these vast issues, whether that's around climate change or whether that's around relations that are going on in the cultural lane and around ethnic issues and things of that nature. So it is definitely something that you are doing masterfully, and we are seeing some great collaborations even taking place on this network, and I know that they will continue, and that is part of capacity building. So that is something that is going on and that you are doing a masterful job of.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions. Yes, the developed and developing nations both have to work together, and we have to find out the way how we can bring better solution for this world. I request all of our audience, please share our content with your government agency, corporation, and academy. And thank you, Professor David Smith, Dr. Asim Musa,
Thank you, sir.
Victoria, Mr. Markley, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. And you know that World Talent Economy Forum collaborate with Petro Business. So as we are techno progressive, so any corporations, any organizations, academy need collaborations and partnership, we are open to do that. Thank you everyone for joining to the session.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Bye
much.
bye and take care.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you.
Bye. 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 Thank you.